This is LMURailsplitters.com. I'm Skyroll and here with head men's basketball coach Josh Schertz. Coach, we do these series just about every year, and now we're starting off with a schedule preview, looking at the 2015-16 schedule. Really looking at it, the thing that stands out to me the most is kind of how quickly it just gets brutal right off the bat. You go to the Conference Carolinas sack challenge, where you face two of the most prolific scoring offenses in the country in King and Lees McRae, and then later on down the road, and then, I jumped ahead of myself. Then you open up South Atlantic Conference play shortly after that against Carson Newman, and a tough conference stretch starts. Then you have Bellarmine. So right off the bat, you guys are going to be tested.
Yeah, I think the schedule is really difficult, and I don't know that it really is any patch all year where you're like, this is a good patch. I think, like you said, you start off with King, who's in the national poll there with the Division II Bulletin and the receiving votes. It's one of the top, 30 teams or so in the country. You play a Lees McRae team that's coming off a school record, 15 wins, and Steve's done an excellent job there. And then you play Hiawassee. Then you got Carson Newman, who's in the Sporting News top 25. I think will be a preseason top 25 team, and is obviously, in my opinion, as good as anybody will play all year. So I think that the schedule coming out the way it does creates a sense of urgency about this time of year, the preseason, and kind of getting yourself ready to play. So I do feel like that's probably going to be a positive, because it does, like I said, on a day-to-day basis, create a sense of urgency about how we got to go about our business and how good we're going to have to be starting on November 13th to have a chance to try to sneak a few of those games out.
And now let's focus a little bit more on that Bellarmine matchup. That's obviously the highlight of the non-conference schedule. They've been to 3 Final Fours in the last 5 years. Us and them have the second and third best winning percentage of the last 5 seasons combined. So just talk about that matchup a little bit, and how, to get that matchup on a national scene.
Yeah, I think it's something that we've been trying to do for a couple of years. We thought that we were going to go to an 18-game conference schedule this year, and obviously with Brevard's situation, that kind of changed. But as we were going to reduce some conference games, we really wanted to do that, and then we were going to beef up our non-conference schedule. And Bellarmine's a team that it makes a lot of sense for us to play. We're 3 hours apart. They obviously are one of the true blue bloods in Division II basketball. When you look at what they've been able to do under Coach Davenport, won a national championship a couple of years back, 3 Final Fours in the last 5 years, and I think they've won about 85% of their games over that stretch. They've been absolutely outstanding. It's a program I have a lot of respect for. I haven't been on the insides, but outside looking in, they do a really nice job. They seem to have great players, great kids. Be a great environment up there. It's not too far for our fans to travel. When they reciprocate and come back here next year, I think the same thing. I'm sure they'll travel well, and hopefully the January 2nd date's a good one. It'll kind of, again, almost the same deal. You break for Christmas, you come back, and you got that Bellarmine game looming. Again, creates maybe a sense of urgency, a more clear focus as to the preparation and how good, again, we're going to have to be to go out and be competitive in a game like that.
Well, and then you had mentioned earlier that there's no real stretch where you say that's a let-up. And another stretch that looks pretty imposing on paper is right after that Bellarmine game. You go to Mars Hill, but then you're home for Queens, home for Anderson, and at Catawba, who we know is a team that really exploded last year and looks like they're heading in the right direction with Rob Perone. So that stretch should be challenging as you really kind of dive into the, I guess you should say, the grind of the South Atlantic Conference season.
Yeah, I think the league as a whole is going to be a monster. I think there was, in Sporting News, I could be off, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. I think we're the only league in the country that got 3 teams in that Sporting News top 25. And so, and I think, you look at our league is going to be really top heavy with teams like Carson Newman, who I thought maybe by the end of last year was arguably playing the best of anybody in our region. They returned all 5 starters and have improved with the class they brought in with some quality depth. Queens, again in the top 25. Have as much talent probably as anybody in the region, and this year they have some continuity with a lot of guys returning. They return all 5 starters, and like Carson Newman, have improved their depth with a really good recruiting class and bringing in a couple of Division I transfers that'll impact them immediately. So I think those 2 programs, we're top heavy there, and then the depth in the league is just going to be outstanding. So when you look at that stretch, Anderson's going through a changeover with Jason Taylor leaving, Jeff Brookman coming on. Jeff's an outstanding coach and has proven himself at Spartanburg Methodist. Did a wonderful job for Jason as his associate head coach there, recruiting a lot of their outstanding players over the years. And so it just, game in, game out, you're going to have to, if you don't bring it, you're going to get beat. The good teams will drub you and the bad teams will beat you. And you look at our league, I think what's going to make it so difficult is the fact that, like I said, it's top heavy, but then everybody in the league, I think, depth-wise, is going to be significantly improved. I don't think I've ever seen or been around a league in my 18 years of coaching where so many starters return. How many teams return all 5 starters? Carson Newman, Queens, Catawba, Tusculum. I mean, there's so many teams in the league that return all 5. Wingate returns 4, Coker returns 4. I mean, the continuity, the corporate knowledge that these teams are going to have, and then the job they've done recruiting, I just think it's going to be an absolute grind from November all the way to March.
And to elaborate a little bit further, we obviously, one of the big talking points in the South Lake Conference is that there are 22 games, and just talk about the challenge of that a little bit in terms of that you really can't take a night off.
Yeah, well, I think it's too many. I think I think that's why we voted to go to the pod system, which was approved, and obviously with Brevard's situation that changed. But the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't allow you to really your season doesn't have a rhythm to it. You're a lot of times when you have 18 conference games, you can kind of play November, December to get yourself ready for the conference grind of January, February, which then you're trying to play your way into position for the postseason. And that's the general kind of way a season kind of unfolds. The way we do it, we have 6 conference games starting November 22nd and ending December 19th. So, basically in 3.5 weeks, we play 6 conference games. You can obviously play your way completely. You can't win it in November, December, but you can certainly play your way out of it. And, it creates a situation where you can play your way out of a league race by the time you break for Christmas. So, again, it brings a lot of clarity to the beginning where you have to be so good right away in November, because if you're not only losing games, but you're losing conference games. And there's a lot of familiarity. I think, when you play everybody twice, it's year after year after year, it creates a lot of, I guess you kind of get to know each other, and the games become tougher because everybody kind of knows what each other does, and so all that factors into it. I do think moving forward, I hope that we find a way to kind of reduce that down and make it where it's an 18 or 19 game schedule, and then you can it alleviates some of those things we're talking about.
Well, and then we'll finish on this right here, is that we talked about the Southland Conference schedule being a grind, but college basketball in general is a grind. You start and practice on mid-October, and you've been leading up the preseason much longer than that, and you're playing mid-November through hopefully late into March. How do you get your team prepared for the challenges, especially that this schedule presents, and just to be prepared and to play every night and with no let-ups?
Well, it's a difficult thing. I think you have to find that balance. There's no, right or wrong way, but you want your guys prepared. You want your guys playing with an edge, but you also want them to be fresh. And so trying to find that balance of what can we do to kind of build those things. You're obviously at this stage where we are here in mid-October, the preseason's just ending. We're getting into, practice where we can practice, and the hours restrictions go from 2 hours a week on the court up to, I guess you get 20 hours total now. So you get more time with the guys, and so basically in the preseason you're kind of relearning habits offensively and defensively, and now you kind of get to the meat and potatoes part of it. And so I think you have to find a way. Like I said, they got to be ready to execute, because that's a big part of obviously winning. So you got to have the ability to do that there. You got to have an edge to you and be ready to play and go out and compete every night. So you got to have a conditioning component and all that. And that being said, you got to have somehow, with all that balance, fresh legs and a clear mind. So the more you can do to kind of bring those things together, the better chance you give. There was some formula that worked for everybody. I'm sure somebody would have figured it out, and we'd all be doing it. But that's part of, I think, the subjectivity of that, which is a great question, kind of makes that, more of an art than a science, because you're trying to balance all those things. And so can you get the guys executing at a high level in great shape and with the right habits, and also have them with fresh legs and a clear mind. So, that's what we're going to try to do. And so when we hit the floor November 13th, we'll know a lot about our team before we cut turkey with King and Lees McRae, and then coming home with obviously Hiawassee, and then obviously Carson Newman. So we sit down on Thanksgiving, we'll have a pretty good grasp where we're at. There'll be no, we'll have some truth presented to us. Hopefully we're up for the challenge, but it's going to be as difficult a schedule in totality with what the SAC and where the SAC is, the league right now, which I think is arguably as good as not only in the region but any in the country. And then you combine that with King and Bellarmine as part of our non-conference schedule. It bodes to be an incredibly difficult challenge. So we're looking forward to it and ready to get to work.